Welcome to CBS News Mornings. I'm Anne-Marie Green. And breaking news overnight. Israel has ordered more than 1 million people in northern Gaza to evacuate the region in less than 24 hours. The unprecedented warning came in just before midnight last night. The United Nations says that is impossible without devastating humanitarian consequences. Hamas responded by telling civilians to stay put. Well, tomorrow marks 1 week since the horror of this war unfolded, and this new evacuation order could signal a ground invasion by Israel is coming. Israeli officials say that they have dropped more than 6,000 bombs over the past week. The UN has warned of a humanitarian catastrophe after Israel cut off Gaza's supply of food, fuel, and electricity. Thousands have been killed on both sides, including 27 Americans. And earlier today, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin arrived in the country to meet with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and other officials, and to get a look at some of the weapons and resources the U.S. has sent. Meanwhile, Secretary of State Antony Blinken is heading to Qatar right now. He just left Jordan, where he met with Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas and King Abdullah II. They focused on efforts to secure the release of hostages and ways to prevent the conflict from expanding.
Well, first, it's important to step back and put this in perspective. No country could tolerate what's happened in Israel, that is, having its citizens slaughtered by a terrorist group. And Israel is not only does it have the right, it has the obligation to defend its people and to do what it can to try to make sure that this doesn't happen again. Israel has to make very hard decisions about the best way to do that, the most effective way to do that. We're supporting them. We're trying to make sure that they have what they need to defend their people and to avoid a repeat of what's happened.
So Ian Lee is joining us now for more on everything that's going on. Ian, you heard the UN reports that Israel's military has informed them that more than 1 million Palestinians in Gaza should relocate from the north to the south within 24 hours. As we pointed out, this message came out at midnight their time, so hours have already gone by. Hamas, however, Hamas is telling civilians to stay put. Can you explain what's happening?
Yeah, Marie, we heard from the Israeli military that there's going to be significant force used after that 24-hour period, warning roughly 1 million Gazans to flee from the northern part of that coastal strip south. Now, that's easier said than done. I've been to Gaza many times. There just really isn't the infrastructure, A, for that many people to move south, and B, if they were to move south, where would they go? There is no place to go. Egypt isn't going to open up its border. There's not enough infrastructure for those people to go. Right now, the safest place for civilians to be are these UN schools. These are designated safety zones by Israel, by the UN, by the Palestinians, places where civilians can find refuge. We know there are hundreds of thousands of people in these schools right now, but this is a very dangerous situation for the people in the north in Gaza City, because if they can't get to one of these schools, they don't really have anywhere else to go. Hamas is telling people to stay put, that this is all part of this psychological warfare by Israel. The UN says that this is going to lead to catastrophe. So if you're a civilian right now in the northern part of Gaza, you're looking at this and you're wondering, where can I take my family to make sure that they're safe? And there's really no good answers at this moment.
There isn't. One possibility could have been Egypt, but talk of a safe corridor to Egypt for refugees seems to be a no-go. Egyptian security sources say that they're rejecting any move to do so. What's going on?
Yeah, I've been based in Egypt for a number of years as well. I've been to that border crossing. It is a tight military zone. Egypt is happy to send supplies into Gaza, but they really have never, even in all the wars that have happened in Gaza, have never really let a steady stream of refugees into their country. They don't want that humanitarian crisis to show up on their territory. So that is why they don't really let Gazans inside their country. And so that does create that conundrum again for the Gazans. Where do they go? Where can they find that safety?
Hamas, meantime, has claimed that 13 hostages being held in the Gaza Strip have been killed in the past day by Israeli airstrikes. What do we know about that?
Yeah, Hamas is saying that there are a number of foreigners. Part of those 13 people have been killed. And, this is a really difficult situation for the Israelis because once those people have been kidnapped, likely they're dispersed throughout the Gaza Strip. Hamas has been able to hold hostages before and keep them in undisclosed locations, really, where no one knows, not even the Israelis, can figure out where they are. And so you do have that possibility that as Israel carries out these devastating airstrikes, thousands of them, that hostages could be holed up in these Hamas areas, could be killed. And so this is a calculus that Israeli military officials are going to have to take when striking those targets in Gaza.
Very early on, shortly after the initial attack on Saturday, I was wondering where the Palestinian Authority was in this. Why had we not heard from them? Eventually, a statement was released, but now we're learning that U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken met with the president of the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas, in Jordan. What do we know about that meeting, what the focus of that meeting was?
Yeah, the Palestinian Authority was pretty much taken by surprise, like everyone was, by that Hamas attack. But the Palestinian Authority is the voice of the Palestinian people, or at least the internationally recognized voice of the Palestinian people, Mahmoud Abbas being the president. And so meeting with him is important for the United States, not only to discuss the ongoing conflict, but to try to find a way out of it, to get the Palestinian Authority on board. But we are going to likely hear from the Palestinian Authority that they want to see concrete steps towards some sort of peace process, and that is something that has really not existed in over a decade. And so this war is really changing the calculus, but right now it is waging that war that we're seeing from the Israelis and Hamas.
Ian Lee, thank you. The United States is moving ahead with plans to get trapped American citizens out of Israel as early as today. Ed O'Keefe explains how the federal government is doing it.
The Biden administration's decision to organize charter flights to get people home comes as the major U.S. airlines suspended operations there for the next several weeks.
We know there's a demand signal out there, and we're going to try the best we can to meet it.
Megan Simmons is desperate to see her sister and family who live near the Gaza border and have been struggling to find a way out.
All you want to do is hug your family member and know that they're okay. And knowing that the U.S. government hasn't done that yet it's very frustrating.
The charters beginning Friday will travel to Athens or Frankfurt, while ships will leave Haifa in northern Israel, ferrying people to Cyprus. A State Department notice says any passenger must be ready to leave within 8 to 12 hours, bring only a suitcase, a small carry-on, and no pets. And they'll have to pay back the government. France, Mexico, and Brazil have already begun evacuation flights, which makes this even more frustrating for Megan Simmons.
It feels like every minute that she's there, she is one less minute where she's safe.
CBS News has also learned the U.S. and Qatar have reached an agreement to block Iran from accessing about $6 billion in oil revenue that had been freed up as part of the recent prisoner swap. The White House had been facing bipartisan pressure in recent days since the attacks to lock down that money, given Iran's support for Hamas. Ed O'Keefe, CBS News, the White House.
Well, CBS News has learned that President Biden will meet today with the families of Americans who are believed to be hostages inside Gaza. U.S. officials say at least 14 Americans are missing, but it's unclear just how many have been abducted. 60 Minutes' Scott Pelley sat down with the president at the White House yesterday to discuss the ongoing efforts to bring those Americans home.
Why do you feel so strongly about speaking to these families personally on Zoom?
Because I think they have to know that the President of the United States of America cares deeply about what's happened to them. Deeply. We have to communicate to the world this is critical. This is not even human behavior. It's pure barbarism. And we're going to do everything in our power to get them home if we can find them.
Well, you can catch Scott Pelley's full conversation with the president about America's role in Israel and the state of Russia's war in Ukraine this Sunday on 60 Minutes, right here on CBS. Security is being tightened across the U.S. and in other countries ahead of the expected pro-Palestinian demonstrations today. Hamas is calling on its supporters across the world to participate in a so-called day of rage. U.S. law enforcement agencies are beefing up security to safeguard Jewish and Muslim communities. Police in New York and Los Angeles are also stepping up patrols. And the Hollywood Actors Union says its scheduled protest will be canceled today due to potential safety concerns. Fencing was placed around the Capitol in Washington ahead of possible violence there, and authorities say they're unaware of any specific or credible threats. Well, the brother-in-law of a woman reportedly taken hostage during the attack on the music festival near the Israel-Gaza border Saturday is speaking out over a video that apparently shows her kidnapping. In the video posted to TikTok, Moran Stella Yanai is seen sitting on her knees on the ground. The 40-year-old Israeli disappeared after the attack. Her family believes that she is among the hostages.
Watching that video of Moran on her knees, caught in the bushes with Arabic-speaking militants, for me it was terrifying. But imagine her mother watching it. She saw it. It's something that you can never get out of your mind. It's something that you can never. It's a sight that no one should ever see. Reaching out from here to world leaders, press, friends. You know, Moran could be your daughter, could be your sister, could be anyone.
Israeli twin babies have been found alive and unharmed in a kibbutz that was attacked by Hamas near the Gaza border. Israel Defense Forces say when they arrived at the scene, they found, quote, blood spread out in homes. Officials described the scene of the mass killing as haunting. Still, a young 30-year-old couple was able to hide their twins before they themselves were killed, according to the Israeli embassy in France, which posted this photo of the family, and the babies were left alone for 14 hours before emergency services arrived on the scene.